You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 27th of June. 8 illegal immigrants actually deported from the UK at last. National Trust appeal to safeguard White Cliffs of Dover. Labour U-turn in Welsh rubbish row. German court rules that circumcision amounts to bodily harm. Australia could be backing down on their immigration stand. Thought for the day, the fall of our health service and the rise of the diverse charities. Finally, name change for our Big Ben? No. Niet, nein, nada, nein. UK news. 8 illegal immigrants who overstayed their visas have been removed from Britain. The 8 illegals were of mixed age, were sent packing after they were found living illegally in Luton, Bedfordshire. 6 Pakistanis and 2 Indians were arrested on raids by the border agency. 3 of the men were living in a residential property in Bedfordshire and another man was working in a diner. Another Pakistani was captured in a raid on a fabric business, while another hid in a roof to avoid being sent home. The border agency has warned more raids are planned. The World at 8 team stress that if you suspect anybody living in Britain illegally, you must contact the border agency and give them a chance to do their jobs. The White Cliffs of Dover could be under threat. This famous and iconic part of the British coastline, which can be seen from Europe, could face destruction of its wildlife due to development. The National Trust has spoken out about this issue and has started to warn the public over losing our sacred landmark. They have also launched an appeal to raise £1.2 million so that it can buy a section of the White Cliffs of Dover. The Trust says it needs the money to purchase a stretch of the chalk cliffs just less than a mile long in order to safeguard it for future generations. The mile-long section of the cliffs would fill out in the missing link in the stretch of coast almost 5 miles long that is owned by the National Trust, from its visitor centre above Dover Port to South Foreland Lighthouse. It is the biggest ever coastal fundraiser for the Trust, which hopes to improve public access and boost the habitat for wildlife at the famous natural landmark. A World at 8 writer comments, "If I win the lottery big time, I will give them all that money. At least there is something white in Britain that will be preserved." The Labour Party has gotten itself into a row in Wales. They have been accused of doing a U-turn on black bin bag waste disposal to the residents of Plasnogith. If my Welsh is not good enough, blame my Welsh Google. Labour denied the promise and has caused a storm in the area which they say is politically a spin being used against them. Labour candidates narrowly claimed victory last month after campaigning for a return to weekly black bag collections. But the party's new cabinet member for the environment, Ashley Govier, has said he does not want to bring back weekly waste collections. The row is ongoing. Euronews. Spain is still having to go cap in hand to the Germans and the French in recent Euro reports. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel is meeting French President François Hollande to discuss the crisis facing the Spanish. The Spanish government has said they need more help from the Eurozone and that their country cannot sustain itself on its present financial course. But Merkel has told Parliament in Berlin that there are no quick or easy solutions to the Eurozone debt crisis. German court rules circumcision is bodily harm. It has been reported that a court in Germany has ruled that circumcising young boys for religious reasons amounts to bodily harm. In a decision that has caused outrage amongst Jewish and Muslim groups, the court said that a child's right to physical integrity trumps religious and parental rights. The case involved a doctor who carried out a circumcision on a 4-year-old boy that led to medical complications. Apparently thousands of Muslim and Jewish boys are circumcised in Germany every year. Although male circumcision, unlike female circumcision, is legal in Germany, the court decided that fundamental right of the child to bodily integrity outweighed the fundamental rights of the parents. Cyprus credit rating cut to junk status by Fitch. It has been reported that Cyprus's credit rating has been cut to junk status by Fitch, raising fears that yet another European country will face the blackmail of the IMF and the Eurozone. Cyprus, whose banks are heavily exposed to Greece, will need €4 billion, that's around £3.2 billion, to support its banks, said Fitch. This is on top of €1.8 billion Cyprus said it needs by Friday to recapitalise its lender, Cyprus Popular Bank. This junk rating makes it impossible for Cyprus to borrow the relevant monies from the international markets because they cannot afford to. Cyprus is also afraid to apply to the Eurozone bailout fund for the amount needed because of the strict draconian conditions they may come with the said loan. World news. Gunmen have attacked what is classed as a pro-government television station south of the Syrian capital Damascus. The attack was carried out by anti-government members who blew up the TV station. The newsroom was completely destroyed and at least 3 people who were working there are reported to have been killed in the attack. A World-Date reporter has commented, "And they say that the president is behind all the killings. I do not think so. The Syrian government is trying to deal with Islamist fundamentalists backed by the United Morons and the West. Assad needs our help, not the so-called protesters." The Australians could be caving in on the immigration issue, reports seem to say. Last week 2 refugee boats packed with asylum seekers sunk off the coast of Christmas Island as they tried to head for Australia illegally. The left-wing politicians have put pressure on the once proud Australia, who is strict on immigration and a tower of strength for other countries to copy. Now it seems that swap deals with people from Indonesia and Malaysia could be taking place. A World-Date writer commented, "That is okay if they swap all the Malaysians and Indonesians already in Oz for Australians in those countries. That is the right way round, I feel." Thought for the day. Well, this thought is about our National Health Service and how government cuts impinge on certain sections of society but not on others. South London Healthcare Trust, which runs 3 hospitals in South East London, is set to be placed on a form of special measures after accumulating a deficit of £150 million, dating back to what the government has described as an unaffordable private finance initiative signed under Labour. Oh, good old Labour. Them are the reducing everyone down to having no money as opposed to raising everyone up a level to have a little money. It was their profligate spending under Blair that has caused a great deal of our huge national deficit along with the global recession. This coalition is at least trying. Well, Cameron is. The Liberals are worse than useless. Now I am talking as a consumer of the NHS and other services, not as a financial person, because when it comes to figures I have dyslexia. I reversed the last 2 digits and really would need a full-time accountant if ever I had any real money. Although my husband is very good with figures, I ain't. But even I can see that extreme steps need to be taken to put back money into this country's services instead of taking it out all the time. This is where the downside of massive and apparently unstoppable immigration comes in. You may say, oh no, not again, but we the public are only given the so-called good side of immigration. For example, there are more people to look after our society and not only enrich us but contribute to the British way of life. Our successive governments and lovies can also feel good about themselves for helping the third world and the underprivileged, and so on and so on. Now it is well known that I do not buy into this statement at all. If you look at the financial side of our great institutions like the NHS over the last 30 years, you will see a considerable dip in just about everything: funding, services, personnel and results. Now these 3 hospitals from this particular trust operate in South East London, an area which is heavily enriched. I would like to take a bet that most of the staff, both medical and civilian, is ethnic. I would also like to take a bet that most of their patients are as well. It is well known we are short of white medical staff, including nurses, because of the embracing by the NHS of diversity, which amounts to white middle-class personnel need not apply. The so-called managers, if they have any gumption, are soon replaced by yes personas that do as they are told. There is trouble in higher circles because Muslim medical staff do not have to raise their sleeves when washing and therefore are not as hygienic as non-Muslims. This is just the thin end of the wedge. They have done away with matrons and brought in the race card. You mustn't criticise an ethnic without being hauled up on charges. But enough of that. We all know it goes on and nothing can be done about it. But it is strange that as soon as our British National Health Service became open to diversity and enrichment, our standards plunged as well as our monies. The PCT for dentistry is also busy withholding money from dentists who want to expand their practices to include more NHS patients. They rightfully withhold monies from failing practices but do not redistribute it back to good practices. This lack of funding throughout the country is sometimes understandable if you think of what we will have to pay back, but it doesn't affect all aspects of all people currently enjoying our hospitality in the UK. You can step off a lorry in the UK, having travelled thousands of miles to reach us, and qualify for free medication and help on the NHS, sometimes being put before local families. If you contract AIDS in Nigeria, just come over here and get thousands of pounds worth of medication free. Now there are 2 points against this, one being go back to Nigeria And 2 being, what the hell are you doing over here with AIDS? It is highly contagious and there have been cases of men from Africa deliberately spreading the disease. People who are ill should not be allowed into the country. I do not care if they are married to another illegal, and I do not care why they came here. They should not be here. Our NHS is now dealing with diseases that we had eradicated here and some we never had in the first place. All because there are certain people who use this country for its financial benefits but fly back home time and time again for their holidays or to tend their second homes. God knows what they bring back. One more problem for our struggling NHS. Now whilst the poor old NHS is struggling and needs stringent rules to bring it back on track, there are certain government funded so-called charities that are doing very well, thank you. It has been reported that thousands of charities are barely disguised fronts for state-backed campaigns. Now as luck would have it, this doesn't include animal charities or Save Our Land charities. Oh no, it does include the diverse and ethnic charities under the guise of helping the third world and more. The environment, public health, foreign aid, inequality and women's rights are areas that have been particularly blessed. It is said that 27,000 groups rely on the taxpayer for more than 75% of their income, with individual donors providing less than half the funding for the entire voluntary sector. Many of the charities lobby for the pet causes of politicians, according to the Institute of Economic Affairs. Christopher Snowdon, the report's author, said the government departments should be banned from using public money for advertising campaigns and called for the abolition of unrestricted grants to charities. Government funding of politically active charities, non-governmental organisations and pressure groups is objectionable, his study said. Firstly, it subverts democracy and debases the concept of charity. Secondly, it is an unnecessary and wasteful use of taxpayers' money. Thirdly, by funding like-minded organisations and ignoring others, genuine civil society is cold-shouldered in the political process. The think tank's report highlighted the Live 8 concerts organised by Bob Geldof in 2005, which campaigned on global poverty and aimed to push governments into providing more foreign aid. It said, like all free lunches, this was anything but free. The leaders of the G8 agreed to double aid to developing countries from 25 billion to 50 billion. This money did not fall out of the sky, but it was taken from the general population, regardless of whether they agreed with the agenda of Bono or Geldof et al. Other charities who benefited were the anti-smoking group ASH, gay rights charity Stonewall, the Campaign for Better Transport and the Child Poverty Action Group were recipients of large amounts of state funding. Now between 1997 and 2005, the combined income of Britain's charities nearly doubled, from £19.8 billion to £37.9 billion, with the biggest growth coming in grants and contracts from Whitehall ministries. The report added the political elite have an incentive to transmit its messages to the public via third parties, because voters regard almost anyone as being more trustworthy than politicians. Now the wording used is important, and if the government's message is relayed by independent and objective citizens groups, so much the better. So the Taliban Women's Fishing Cooperative should have no trouble. My point being, why should you, the taxpayer, pay out millions for other people in other countries, and sometimes unfortunately even in our own, when we cannot pay our own debts? We are paying out for the wrong charities. Our charities, and there are many worthwhile homegrown ones, especially animal ones, who have no funding from anyone, only the public. They look after farm animals, domestic animals and even animals suffering abroad. We need money for our elderly, suffering under council cuts. We need it for our children and their education. Not in Africa, because as sure as God made little green apples, the buggers will be over here, riddled with AIDS and milking the system. There needs to be a rethink on charities. A halt to inventing new ethnically diverse charities just to advertise some celeb and provide a platform for some second-rate MP. The NHS needs a thorough overhaul with more power to the medical professions involved. NHS benefits need to be stopped for anyone not born in this country and even for those immigrants who have managed to produce children. Our national health is our national health. The clue is in the title, national. Monies need to be funnelled from foreign aid to English aid. We and our government need to realise we are an island people, not part of Europe and not near the third world. We were not the only colonisers that seem to be paying the price of giving these people civilisation, which they now do not want, so they come here to make this country pay. but also they will inevitably reduce England and the English to the status their countries had when they left them. We need a massive deportation programme if we want to save our NHS, our education system and just about every other service we English have enjoyed over the last 40 years. Draconian but true, and you have heard it on The World at 8. Radio Britain speaks the truth, unpalatable and un-PC though it may be. I hope you never have to say about me what they are saying about Enoch Powell. He was right. I wish we had listened and acted then. And finally, Big Ben could be in for a big change. The huge Westminster clock, which is around 100 years old, is said to be renamed as Elizabeth Tower. The renaming is of course to honour Queen Elizabeth II. Not only has Big Ben got a rename but also a sex change, one reporter commented. This World at 8 presenter thinks that it would be a change for the worse. Big Ben has a ring to it, Elizabeth Tower has none, and the Queen never has had any power to actually rule, so what is the point? Might as well call it Brussels Tower and be done. They should rename the House of Commons as Elizabeth House as well and leave Big Ben alone. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night.